If you're watching this video, chances are you've been given thought to leaving the comfort of home in search of a life that matches how you feel. I can totally relate. Ever since I was young, I was fascinated by how different cultures live throughout the world. Different landscapes, animals, weather, and of course, different foods. My parents are from Haiti, and their childhood stories painted a picture of a world much different than mine, something worth experiencing. That thought never left me, and along with it came all the doubts. I worried about language differences, American hatred, the comfort that America provides, and the huge elephant in the room, money. I thought, how could I make enough money to live anywhere in the world for the rest of my life and never have to worry about money again? In today's video, I plan on tackling this very question. How can you survive financially if you just pick up and leave? Most people that you see on the internet either hit it big like the bucket list family, invested their money, or saved up $1 million before taking that chance. What if there was another way, a more practical solution? On this channel, I mostly talk about business and real estate investing. More and more I'm getting pulled into living out my own dreams of seeing the world and experiencing it totally. I'm here to show you how I'm doing it and giving you a pathway to live your dreams. If this is the sort of content that inspires you to take control of your life and live it to the fullest, please like, subscribe so you don't miss a thing. My name is Carl Pierre, and this is ENTP Life. The first thing I want to cover is an opportunity that I have for people who want to live internationally and are interested in working with me. I currently have 4 positions open for my ENTP Life brand and real estate investment firm. I plan on filling these positions with my buddy's company, Freelance-a-thon, and native English speakers who are living in South America that frankly don't want to be English teachers. I've been here preaching the benefits of living abroad, how to create passive income, and thought, why not just create jobs for people and eliminate that fear? Why not employ Americans who want to go in a different direction? The pandemic has shown us remote working is possible. Match that up with global arbitrage, and that dream of living abroad becomes realized quite easily. Obviously, if you're interested in working with me, earning a decent living abroad, you can email me your resume to the email address below. At the end of this video, I'll describe the positions I have open so you know what your options are. Let's talk about global arbitrage and why it makes sense to live abroad. So according to the Census Bureau, in 2019, the median household income in the United States for a family of 4 was around $70,000 a year. That means that the average take-home was just below $6,000 a month. And if you think about taxes, probably even lower than that. Maybe you're taking home around $4,000 a month when you really look at the taxation scene. Now, managing a family of 4 in the United States on $4,000 or even $5,000 a month seems kind of difficult. Obviously, if you're living in rural America or in smaller cities, it may be possible and life will be decent. You'll have a household, you'll be able to provide yourself with food, a car. Life will be pretty decent. But if you were to look at that same amount of money and what it will get you in a South American country, your lifestyle will probably be 4 or 5 times better. When I did a previous video with Yusuf Latif, we covered how much it cost him to live in Brazil. He was paying about $300 for his apartment, maybe $50 a week for food, and that was way too much food for him. When we looked at all the numbers, he was paying less than $1,000 a month to maintain his person and have some money for social activities. Obviously, if you're looking at a family of 4, you can multiply that number just by a bit because your housing expenses are going to get a little bit larger and your food expenses are going to get larger. But as far as the real cost to run your household, it doesn't get that much more expensive. For example, if you look at what it would cost you to rent a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom apartment in South America, you're looking at maybe $600 to $900 a month for one of those apartments. And then the rest is just going to be your food expense, internet expenses, electrical expenses, and you're covered. So for a family of 4, $2,000 is going to be the equivalent of that median income in the United States. But once you have a little bit more money than that, things start to get really interesting. And this is throughout the world, right? This is about 65 to 75% of countries, including Italy. I even spoke with somebody where they were saying that they're running their household of 2 on 1,200 euros a month, and they're living pretty comfortably. But that wasn't including rent because they had their property paid off. But just living expenses, $600 per an adult, is really cheap in my opinion. So if you could make $2,000 a month or even $1,500 a month if you're single, you'd be living a decent life, or at least a comparable life to your life in the United States. This won't be living on hard times. You'd be living truly a middle-class lifestyle in a better neighborhood, having everything that you would typically expect from the States but at a fraction of the price. I realized back in 2011 that living abroad on US income was possible. My plan was to generate $3,500 a month in passive income and live in Thailand. Prior to this trip to Thailand, I mostly traveled to the Caribbean and Mexico in real tourist locations for Americans. And when you do that, what ends up happening is all the pricing kind of gets skewed to the US dollar and priced in ways that there really isn't any benefit from being international. It wasn't until I went to Thailand that I saw it completely differently. In Thailand, you could get a full lunch with a beer for $3 at any street side restaurant, right? I'm talking about pad thai, maybe a little appetizer or dessert on the side, and a single beer, and you're paying $3 for that. You could go even cheaper if you wanted to, and probably ignore the beer, and you'll be down at like $1.50 or $2. You could even look this up on YouTube to see how much a street food cost in Thailand, and you'll get an idea of that. I also was looking at the real estate costs. You could purchase a property in Thailand for $80,000 in a newer building. It might be a one bedroom. And in Thailand, it's a little different because as a foreigner, you're not allowed to own. So you have like this 100-year lease on a condominium, but none of us are living for 100 years. So that's not going to really come into play. However, if you were to rent one of these apartments, you're probably paying $500 a month, $600 a month, and your food costs are virtually free, less than $10 a day. If you start to do the math between your apartment and your food cost, you're already under $1,000. So I started looking at, well, what if I wanted to travel? And what if I wanted to live a little lavishly? And what if I had kids and needed to send them to some sort of private school? And when I did the math, I said, well, with $3,500 a month, I would be able to afford a pretty good lifestyle by comparison to the lifestyle that I had in the United States at the time for $3,500, right? And this was inclusive of a family. So at the time, I didn't have a family, I just had a girlfriend. And we were talking about how cool it would be to kind of take that step and move abroad. And when I came back, I already had a few real estate holdings, and I was doing the math, and I was like, you know what? I really am not that far away to having $3,500 completely passively. But I got worried about the language and the cultural differences in Thailand, and how would that feel long term? It doesn't matter anyway, because for me, it stayed in the back of my mind as a potential. And then I started looking at every other place that I traveled from the same lens. Now that I'm not going to like touristy areas, how does the dollar compare to the local currency, and what is my lifestyle going to be like? And that's where all of this was born. I'm moving my family to Colombia this October, where you'll get a direct look at my lifestyle there and what is possible on a modest budget of $3,500 a month. I chose Colombia because Colombia is a really beautiful country, and it's not that far from the United States, both physically and socially. What I like about Colombia is that Spanish is a familiar language for me, so it doesn't seem too exotic. I can read a lot of Spanish and understand what is being said. It's easy to translate. It's an easy language to learn. It's also only 3 hours away from Florida and 5 hours away from New York City, where the majority of my wealth is being generated. So I wanted to be in a place that if there was an emergency, I could hop on a plane, fly home within the day and address it, and even fly back home to Colombia if that were the case, okay? So when I was looking at it, from a geographical standpoint as well as a lifestyle standpoint. When you look at the culture, even though Colombia is heavily influenced by the Spanish culture because it was a Spanish colony, it's still very much American in a way. And what I mean by that is that it's post-colonial world, right? So most of the construction is newer. Everybody who's living there had relocated from another place other than the indigenous folks. And there is like a similarity in style of dress, interaction. They worship the same gods, etc. So as far as a cultural shock, it's not as much of a culture shock as compared to Thailand, right? So in Thailand, the written language is completely different. How the language is spoken, pronunciation is completely different. It's going to be a lot harder to make that adjustment from the US to one of the Asian countries. So when I went to South America the first time, I went to Peru, and that's where I saw the beauty of Miraflores in Lima, Peru. And I was like, wow, this feels like an American upper class neighborhood, and it's in Lima, and the prices are a third of what they would be in the United States. And I was comparing directly Long Island City, Queens, and Miraflores. I was comparing a waterfront property in Miraflores, which is directly on the coast, right across the street from the outside parks, etc. A 3-bedroom apartment was maybe $1,000 or $1,100, and a 3-bedroom apartment in Long Island City these days might run me $4,500, maybe $5,000 a month. So I was like, wow, there's a huge delta, there's huge savings there, and culturally and lifestyle-wise, it's a lot better. I compared the cost of food. If I went out to a nice restaurant, I might be able to get a beer for $2 or $3 in the restaurant, where if I go to a nice restaurant in Long Island City, I'm probably going to be paying $7 to $9 for that same beer. So everything seemed to be a third of the cost in compared to my New York City lifestyle. And again, that was reinforced when I went to Colombia, right? So the first South American city I ever visited was Lima. And then after Lima was Cartagena and Medellin. And I saw that the infrastructure was there, the lifestyle that I like is there. And I said, you know what? Colombia might be the place, because compared to Lima, Peru, it's a faster flight to the East Coast, right? Peru's on the west coast of South America. So the time to get from New York City to Lima was a lot longer. The more I started visiting Colombia, I fell in love with Medellin. I like the temperature. I like the vibe. It's a big city, over 4 million people. So it has like the right mix of kind of like tropical and rainforest with big city, but not like a US big city. It really just resonated with me, and that's why I made it my choice. But when you look at the cost of living there, it's again in line with everything else, about a third of what I would be paying in the United States for an equivalent lifestyle. And what I'm budgeting for my lifestyle in Colombia is, again, the same $3,500. My apartment is going to run me anywhere from $600 to $1,200 a month, depending on what I get. Is it furnished? Is it not? Etc. And then the housekeeper is going to cost me about $400 to $500 a month. Childcare around the same cost. And then we're just looking at food costs. So right there, for less than $2,000 a month, I have all household expenses covered, and food and utilities. And now that extra $1,500 is for miscellaneous spending, travel, etc. And you could travel throughout the country and South America fairly cheap. So you're talking about hotel prices of $40, $50 a night for decent places. So it's really cost effective. And as I said, culturally, it's not too much of a shock, and physically not too far away from the United States, where I need to continue to conduct my business, because that's how I earn my money. If you're ready to take the chance, move abroad, and work with me in Colombia, I have the following positions open. For ENTP Life, the position that I have available is a video editor, right? I already work with one video editor, but I'm going to be putting out more content, not only for ENTP Life, but for my other channels that I'm planning out. So since there's going to be more video, I'm going to need more people to help me edit, and the time that goes into that is a lot of time. So one video editor that is comfortable with editing, bilingual, absolutely necessary. And I plan on having that position for as long as I need to, as I expand on how much content I put out. Another position that I have is for my real estate investing company. And that position is going to be an operations manager. So I really looked at what I have going on within my organization and realized that manager of sorts needs to be responsible for some of the day-to-day tasks that I just don't want to do anymore. I also have an operations manager position for ENTP Life, which is going to help kind of manage the help that I have with the channel, with the brand, really making sure that all the systems are being followed and that things are working seamlessly. In addition to that, I have a property manager position that is going to be looking after some of my properties in the United States. And this is, something that can be done remotely, because it's ensuring that everybody's paying their rent, following up with tenants, communicating with real estate agents to relist our properties, taking care of work orders and that sort of thing. And this is a position that I actually have currently within the Freelance Latam company, but my employee wants to transition into another role, and I want to continue to manage these properties with international folks or with Americans who understand the real estate game and are willing to do that from South America. The last position that I have available is a social media manager. If you follow me across platforms, you see that I don't post that much on Instagram. I actually don't really like posting that much on Instagram, but I understand the value of constant communication between an audience that's interested in learning about the things that I discuss, whether it's healthcare, healthcare staffing, home health, real estate investing, Turo. I have kind of a wide range of things that I do. And because of my time, I'm not able to keep the public as informed as I would like to. And I feel that between all my media channels, you're talking about YouTube, Instagram, Facebook groups, LinkedIn, and just email communications, I fall behind because I am spread pretty thin. So I want a social media manager who really understands how to kind of create interesting content, how to analyze that content, and give me guidance on the type of content that I should be producing, as well as function as a producer to make sure that everything is kind of lining up. I plan on doing, a documentary style on this concept itself. What it's like to relocate out of the United States into some of these other places in the world. And that's going to be quite a heavy lift for me to do by myself. So that social media manager can also assist in arranging interviews, coordinating shoot locations. So it's more of a creative position and a management position at the same time. That's what I currently have available. And since I'm going to be in Colombia, those of you who are interested in moving to Colombia, have the skill set, and really want to not teach English, I highly recommend that you put in that resume so that I can evaluate you and see whether or not you'd be a good fit for the team. Thanks again for joining me here at ENTP Life. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you soon.